Melissa is an independent business consultant. She's located in Kansas City in the US. Melissa, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Javier. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Melissa, perhaps it is more convenient if you can introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to do so. So, Javier, you said I was an independent consultant, and that means that I have no vendor affiliations. I'm totally vendor agnostic. So when I work with a client, I'm not coming in from the perspective of recommending a specific product or service. I work in the unified communication, contact center, and artificial intelligence space.
That's very good. Melissa, and today we are going to cover a topic, service and support, which is not usually a very hot topic, that usually it is disregarded within the industry. Is that correct?
I don't think it's top of mind for most people. And I think it's way more important probably than the publicity would indicate. When I'm working with a client and I'm working on an RFP with them, I always make sure that we cover not only like what are the capabilities of the new solution, what are you trying to do, where are you trying to go, but also look at what it's like to live with that solution. And so, on an ongoing basis, you have kind of three categories you need to think about. You've got hardware break fix, and how do you handle that? You've got software break fix, which, patches, security updates, that kind of thing. But then you've also got software updates or new enhancements. And so you need all three of those to have your system be current and have it work at its best. And a lot of people don't think about that. And it's also confusing because within the industry, there's no real standard. A lot of companies price each individual component. Some group them together. So if you don't specifically ask about each component, you may or may not be getting it in the end.
Okay. So Melissa, one of your part of your job is to help your customers understand, the whole solution and how it can fit, in their own business, in their own or organization. But I have a question, right? So if unified communications, it is a technology that has been around for some time now. Mm-hmm. Why do we still need, having a special service and support?
Great question. I think the answer really is that it's been around for a long time. It's typically very reliable. And so especially people that are looking at budgets, a lot of times equate reliability with simplicity. And so because it's reliable, they think it's simple. And so I would have you think about your car. Whether or not you would answer the question about your car is whether it's reliable or not. You would definitely, it's not simple, right? I mean, because you are involved every day in doing something with the car. You've got to get fuel. You may have to change tires. You've got all kinds of things that you have to do with that car. Well, most of the time, the people in an organization that are making financial decisions aren't involved in that day-to-day interaction with keeping the systems going. And so to them, reliable equals simple. And therefore it's like, why would you spend money on software assurance when it works? It's just going to work. We could put that money elsewhere. And I think that's a short-sighted thought process myself.
That's right. So we go to the conversation of understanding service and support as a cost, to understanding service and support as a contribution to the total cost of ownership.
Correct.
All right. Correct. So when you said before, right, that we are considering different elements of for service and support. We were talking about software updates. We talk about hardware support, and also about cyber security. Right.
Huge.
But really cyber attacks, do they really happen? Or it is something, for, just to scare customers and so on. Something that happens.
Oh, they happen. Absolutely, they happen. I think they're just becoming more and more prevalent, and it's a huge issue. I think every organization has to worry about it. It's not my client, but I know of a large city government that was hit with a ransomware attack, and they have a Mitel system, and the attack was focused on essentially Windows elements within their network. So the phone system was on their network, and they lost access to all of their servers just about. But the Mitel system continued to work even though it was on the network because it wasn't Windows-based, it was Unix-based. And so they were able to at least have the phone system working while all the rest of their services were brought down. So this was huge. And then in addition, because they had software assurance, they were able to get with Mitel and get support on anything that they could do to prevent the spread of the attack and have it eventually maybe take down the phone system. So part of it was an architectural thing, and part of it was having the software assurance to be able to get at the front of the line and deal with this critical issue right away.
So it really happens to companies all sizes. Huh?
Absolutely.
All sizes. And there is another aspect, Melissa. So how do you deal with that with your customers? Because unified communications is just one more element in one company's IT infrastructure, communication systems, and so on. And we really need to make sure that those systems remain, that they can keep working, even though we know that the rest of the technology framework may change.
Yeah, I think that communications it's kind of like air. I mean, air's around you all the time, and you need it, but you just take it for granted that you're always going to be able to breathe the air around you. And so when your communications go down, there's this huge, oh my goodness moment where it's like, oh wow, this essential service isn't here. So I think it's critical to have support for those services, because if something happens, you've got to be able to get to support and get it back up. So I think you can't just gloss over and go, oh, it's reliable, we don't need to spend money on that. I think you're constantly at risk, and it's well worth the money spent.
We made in Mitel some simulations with real customers of what is the real cost of downtime. For their own specific companies, the number of employees that you have working with your systems, the cost per hour, the productivity of those employees. And the conclusion is that the cost of downtime is something really, really scary,
It's huge. It really is huge.
Okay. So Melissa, in this industry, which is so focused in solutions, how can we educate partners and customers to pay attention to service and support, right? How can we, what can we do so they really realize that how important it is?
Well, I think you could start by asking the question, would you, if you have buildings at all, would you not insure them? I mean, buildings are pretty simple. They just sit there. But of course you would insure it, because things can happen. There could be storms. Who knows? So people wouldn't consider passing up insurance on property. And so if your people can work remotely, you may be able to function as a business without your building, but you will not be able to function without communications. So if you would insure your building, you definitely should be insuring your communication.
Absolutely. In that exercise that we did, right, and we look at the consequences, not only from the financial point of view, but also from the marketing point of view, from the customer experience point of view. Okay? Because, for example, in contact centers, both customers and users are expecting more features, more functionalities, and those are coming usually through software assurance with the software updates.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a client that had let their contact center, their entire PBX and contact center software get really old, and it was past end of life for that release, and the contact center server failed, and it was a revenue-producing, customer-facing contact center that just was down, and it was so old that they couldn't upgrade it, and So they had to go basically scavenge parts, and they were down for 2 to 3 days. Absolutely no way to service their customers during that period of time. And so it was a revenue hit. It was a reputation hit. It was ugly all the way around. It was just not a good place to be.
No, not at all. Melissa, and when it comes to, I mean, we usually have that idea that service and support is something just to keep things working, right? But also is something to make sure that you remain flexible. For example, if we consider how many times companies change the clouds and so on, it is those software updates that really make sure that you can keep operating with the new in the new cloud and that kind of things.
Yeah, I'll tell you about another client of mine who had multiple buildings. It was their hospitality type of industry, and they had phone systems in all of those buildings that they let age and age and age. And the consequences were that, yeah, they didn't pay for software assurance, and so they saved whatever the annual cost was of that. But in the end, they ended up with systems that were end of life, that couldn't be upgraded. They were stuck with a number of licenses that they had. They couldn't add features, and things like they were on PRIs. They couldn't move to SIP because they couldn't get the licenses because they couldn't change the software on the system. And so they ended up paying every month way more for telco services than they would have if they had been able to upgrade the SIP. And so they were just stuck in this endless cycle of, and they got to the point where they had to eventually spend a lot of money just to take those things out and replace them. So while it looked like you're saving money to begin with, in the long run, it costs them more to not be able to have take advantage of new technology, not be able to give their customers capabilities and services that they were expecting, and they were lagging in the marketplace. So all in all, it seemed like a great idea at the time, but in the long run, it was not a good decision.
Yes, and also software as service and support is also needed, whatever the deployment. Okay, purely on the cloud, on premises, hybrid. It is always needed.
Absolutely, the architecture is independent. None of it works magically by itself without some sort of effort and tending to it.
That's very good. Melissa, and what is the tendency in the industry? Okay, when it comes, with the customer, with their own IT teams, just perhaps doing some admin in their own systems, with the partner, with their own technical teams, and also with the vendor, or providing, at the end of the day, support in more extreme cases. So, is that the pattern in the industry, or we are seeing other tendencies in the industry?
I'm seeing. Most of my clients want to do as much as they can of the day-to-day stuff themselves. So they want to be trained on the systems, and they want to be able to do simple admin tasks. And simple is probably a relative term depending on each client, but they want to be self-sufficient. But the fact is that there are some things that you only touch once in a long period of time. And so you need backup support for those types of things that you don't work with all the time, or backup support for situations like maybe a cyber attack or something like that, where it's out of the norm and you don't have the expertise to deal with it. So at that point, you've got to have partner backed up by, in my opinion, the manufacturer in order to get those higher level issues resolved in a timely fashion.
Good. So the wrong way to look at it is that, okay, if I only got support from the vendor just one time in 2 years, perhaps I don't need service and support. This is the wrong approach, because it is it is the wrong one.
Well, it is because if you contacted them, that's because it was something that you couldn't handle yourself. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have bothered to contact them. So, to just say, well, we just did it, once every 2 years, it's not worth it. that was probably something that was really big that you couldn't handle on your own and that you needed that support. And without it, so I used to work on the vendor side many years ago. And so we were I was with a partner basically. And so when our customers would call us and they'd say, we're having this problem, and if we needed to get the manufacturer involved, the first thing that when they answer the call, they say, what release are you on? And if your answer is something that's further back than whatever their standard is, typically within 2 releases, but if you're further back than that, they are like, sorry, get current and we'll talk to you. And they're serious about it. They will not work with you if you're not current. So, you may not need that support very often, but when you need it, you have to be current in order to get it.
That's good. Melissa, I am, and it is the last question, which is a little bit surface, but I am a poor product marketing manager. So what can I do to educate the market, to really realize that unified communications is not a one-off, that we need to have a holistic view of the solution, mm-hmm. that you need to keep current, you need to keep secure, you need to keep updated. So how do you educate your customers, and how can I copy you?
I try to build it into the when we're in an acquisition project, I try to build it into the cost of the entire total cost of ownership. So we look at building in the software assurance components as part of that budget for at least 5 years, if not longer. It kind of depends on the customer's budget cycle. But we build it in and just say, look, this is it. You can't just buy it. You have to also do these other things that make it useful. And so I think budgeting for it long term and having that be a part of it to begin with, it's just like that's how you buy it, is easiest way. It's harder if you quit spending money on it to come back and then add the money on it. But I think in that case, I would say if I was guiding a client on how to do it, I would say, every year that platform gets older, it's going to be more expensive to keep it current. And it's going to, and the likelihood of failure goes up every year it ages. So, maybe you didn't need software assurance in year 2 because it was, it was working great. But every year your risk goes up, and every year your cost goes up in order to get current. So, you got to do it. You just have
to. Melissa, I always enjoy so much talking to you because I rant a lot. So thank you for your time with us.